Lyra pressed herself against the cold metal wall of the ventilation shaft, watching the humans below through the grate. Her pearl-white scales caught the dim light as she shifted, making her pull the ragged cloak tighter around her shoulders. The cargo bay was busy today. Workers moved containers, checked inventory lists, and laughed with each other like they had nothing to fear in the universe. She hated how comfortable they seemed, how easy their lives appeared. 19 years old by human counting, and Lyra had spent the last 8 of those years hiding, running, surviving in the spaces between normal life where nobody looked too closely. The scars on her back where her wings connected to her spine still ached when the station's artificial weather turned cold. Reminders of the day human mercenaries had raided her family's colony, killed her parents, and taken their scales to sell on black markets across the galaxy. Dragon scales were worth more than most people earned in a lifetime. Beautiful, durable, and rare enough that collectors paid fortunes for them. Her mother's scales had been deep emerald. Her father's had shimmered like bronze in sunlight. Both of them died protecting her, giving her time to run and hide in a cargo ship that eventually brought her here to Waypoint 7. This space station was neither the best nor worst place in known space. It existed as a trading hub where dozens of species met to exchange goods, information, and stories. The station administrator was fair, the security was reasonable, and most importantly, there were enough dark corners and forgotten maintenance tunnels for someone like Lyra to disappear into. She did repair work to survive. Good with her hands and better with technology, Lyra fixed broken equipment that others left behind. She never met her clients face to face. Instead, she used a dead drop system in the lower levels. People left broken items with payment in credits or food. She fixed them and returned them the same way. Some people tried to find her, curious about their mysterious repair worker, but she always moved before they got close. Trust was a luxury she could not afford. Every human face reminded her of the mercenaries. Every loud voice made her flinch. Every unexpected sound sent her scrambling for the nearest exit. But today, something different happened. Lyra was making her way through the maintenance passages when she heard voices in an adjacent corridor. She froze, ready to retreat, but something in the tone made her pause, not the usual chatter of workers or the harsh commands of security. This was something else. Through a crack in the wall panel, she saw 2 men. One wore a security uniform and looked impatient. The other was clearly exhausted, dark circles under his eyes and grease stains on his work clothes. He held a small child against his chest. The girl was maybe 4 years old, asleep with her thumb in her mouth. "I am telling you there has to be someone," the tired man said. His voice carried desperation. "I will pay whatever rate they want." "Mr. Reed, I already told you," the security officer replied. "Every child care center on this station has rejected your application. Your daughter has been flagged as a behavioral risk." "She is 4 years old. She is not a risk, she is traumatized. She bit 3 caregivers last month, drew blood from 2 of them. The centers have liability concerns." Daniel Reed, that was his name apparently, shifted his daughter's weight in his arms. "She is scared. She does not understand that people are trying to help. After her mother died, after the accident, she just needs someone patient enough to understand." "That is not my department," the officer said. "I am just telling you what the centers told me. Find private care or find a new job that lets you watch her yourself. I am already working double shifts to pay off medical debts. If I lose this job, we get deported to a labor colony. Do you know what happens to a 4-year-old in a labor colony?" The officer shrugged and walked away. Daniel stood there for a long moment, his shoulders sagging. He pressed his face against his daughter's hair, and Lyra saw his lips move in what might have been a prayer or just whispered promises he did not know how to keep. Something twisted in Lyra's chest. Recognition, maybe. She knew what it felt like to be that desperate and that helpless. She knew what it was to have the entire universe turn its back while you struggled to protect someone you loved. Her father had held her the same way the night the mercenaries came. Protective, desperate, willing to do anything to keep her safe. Daniel started walking toward the lifts, still carrying his daughter. Lyra watched until they disappeared from sight. Then she returned to her hiding spot in the ventilation system, trying to forget what she had seen. But that night, alone in her small space with nothing but old repair manuals and salvaged food, she could not stop thinking about the man's face. The way he held his child like she was the only thing in the universe that mattered. The next morning, when Lyra went to check her usual dead drop location, she found something unexpected. Not broken equipment or payment, but a handwritten note slipped under the hatch where she collected jobs. The handwriting was careful and clear, like someone had taken time to make sure every word was readable. I know you are there, I know you are listening, I know you are afraid. My daughter is afraid too. Every stranger is a threat to her, every new place is dangerous, every voice is too loud. She bites because she does not know any other way to make the fear stop. Maybe you understand that better than anyone else on this station. Maybe that is why you would be the only one who could help her. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to consider that we might need someone who knows what fear tastes like. Cargo Bay 7, midnight. If you come alone, I will have Lily with me. If you do not come, I will understand. Daniel Reed. Lyra read the note 3 times. Her hands shook slightly, making the paper rustle. How did he know she was there? How did he know where to leave this message? Had she been careless? Was this a trap? But something about the words rang true. Not the polished speech of someone trying to manipulate, but the raw honesty of someone with no options left. She burned the note, as she burned all evidence of her existence. But the words stayed in her mind all day, repeating themselves while she worked on a broken environmental regulator. Maybe you understand that better than anyone else on this station. She did understand. That was the problem, she understood too well. For 3 days, Lyra debated with herself. 3 days of moving through the station's forgotten spaces, fixing broken machines, and trying not to think about a desperate father and his frightened child. But thinking was all she did. She found herself taking routes that passed near the cargo operations area. Not following them exactly, just being in places where she might catch a glimpse. She told herself it was caution, making sure this Daniel Reed was who he claimed to be and not some hunter using a child as bait. What she saw made the decision harder, not easier. Daniel worked in the cargo loading bays, operating heavy machinery that moved shipping containers between docked vessels and storage areas. Brutal work that required focus and strength. He did 12-hour shifts, sometimes longer. And through it all, his daughter stayed nearby. The station allowed it because there was nowhere else for her to go. Lily Reed sat in a corner of the loading bay with a tablet and some toys, supposedly entertaining herself while her father worked. But Lyra could see the truth from her hidden vantage point in the upper scaffolding. The girl was terrified. Every loud noise made her flinch. Every time someone walked near her corner, she pressed herself against the wall. When workers tried to speak to her kindly, she showed her teeth and made sounds like a cornered animal. Twice during Lyra's observations, Lily had complete breakdowns, screaming, thrashing, trying to run toward her father. Both times, Daniel had to stop working to calm her down. Both times, his supervisor looked angry. The other workers talked about them when Daniel was out of earshot. Poor kid, losing her mother like that. Trapped in that shuttle wreckage for hours before rescue found them. Miracle she survived. Not much of a miracle if she is going to be broken for life. Reed better figure something out soon. Supervisor is looking for any excuse to fire him. On the 3rd night, Lyra made her decision. Not because she had overcome her fear of humans, not because she trusted Daniel Reed, but because she recognized something in Lily that she saw in herself every time she looked at her reflection. The look of someone who had learned the universe was full of teeth and claws, and survival meant never letting your guard down. She left a note at the same dead drop location where Daniel had contacted her. Simple words. Cargo Bay 7, midnight, come alone with the child. Midnight came slowly. Lyra arrived 2 hours early, checking every corner of the cargo bay, every shadow, every possible ambush point. She found nothing suspicious, just empty space and the normal sounds of a station at night cycle. Daniel arrived exactly at midnight. No security escort, no hidden backup. Just a man carrying his sleeping daughter wrapped in a worn blanket. "I was not sure you would come," he said to the darkness. "I am here." Lyra kept her voice low, staying behind a stack of supply crates. "That does not mean I trust you." "Fair enough, I do not expect trust, I just need help." "Why me? You do not even know what I am." "I know you are good at staying hidden. I know you are good at fixing broken things. I know you have been watching us for 3 days." He smiled tiredly. "The ventilation grates in the loading bay are old. They rattle when someone moves in the shafts above them. Most people do not notice. But when you spend every day terrified that your daughter will do something that gets you both thrown off the station, you start paying attention to everything." Lyra felt exposed, even in shadow. "You could have reported me." "For what? Existing. I do not care who you are or why you hide. I care that my daughter needs someone who will not quit on her like everyone else has." "What makes you think I can help?" Daniel shifted Lily's weight in his arms. The girl stirred, making small, distressed sounds in her sleep. He gently patted her back until she settled. "You asked me why I will ask you something. Why did you come tonight? You could have ignored my note, could have moved to another part of the station and forgotten we exist. But you came. Why?" Lyra did not answer immediately. The truth felt too raw, too revealing. But Daniel waited patiently, not pushing, and something about his patience reminded her of her father. "Because I know what it is like," she finally said. "To be hunted, to have everyone see you as a thing instead of a person, to live every day knowing that trust can get you killed. Then you understand what Lily is going through. Every person who tries to help her looks the same to her traumatized mind. They all become the people who could not save her mother, the people who left her in the dark, the people who represent everything that went wrong. She attacked caregivers. Why would I be different? Because you will not pretend to understand. You will not tell her everything is fine when it is not. You will not force her to be okay to make things easier for adults." Daniel took a step closer to where Lyra hid. "My daughter needs someone who knows that fear does not go away just because people tell you to stop being scared. Someone who knows that healing takes time and patience and acceptance that some days will be harder than others." Lyra emerged slightly from the shadows, still hooded, still partially hidden. The dim light caught the edge of her scales where they showed at her. Collar, Daniel noticed, but did not react beyond a small nod of understanding. "I will try for 1 week," Lyra said. "You bring her here each morning before your shift, pick her up when you are done. I cannot promise anything beyond that." "1 week is more than anyone else has offered. What do you need in payment?" "Credits for food, real food, not ration bars." "Done. Anything else?" "If this goes wrong, if she gets hurt, or if I cannot handle her, you do not blame me. You do not report me. You just take her back and we forget this happened." Daniel nodded. "Agreed. One more thing, though." "What?" "Thank you for trying. That is more than most people would do." Lyra did not know how to respond to gratitude, so she said nothing. Daniel turned to leave, then paused. "Her name is Lily. She is 4 years old. She likes the color purple and mechanical things that move. Her mother used to call her Little Spark because she was always curious about how things worked. Before the accident, she laughed all the time. I would like to hear her laugh again someday." He left before Lyra could respond. She stood alone in the cargo bay, wondering what she had agreed to and whether 1 week would be enough time to realize it was a terrible mistake. The first morning, Daniel arrived early with Lily awake and tense in his arms. The girl watched everything like she was waiting for an attack. Her small hands gripped her father's shirt so tightly that her knuckles were white. Lyra had prepared the cargo bay as best she could, cleared a space, brought in some cushions she had salvaged from storage, set up a small lamp that provided warm light instead of the harsh overhead fixtures. It looked almost comfortable if you ignored the industrial metal walls and the smell of lubricant and ozone. "Lily, this is the person I told you about," Daniel said gently. "She is going to spend time with you today while I work. Her name is Lyra." Lily buried her face in her father's neck. Lyra stayed several meters away, giving the child space. "You can put her down," Lyra said quietly. "I will not approach her." Daniel knelt and tried to set Lily on her feet, but the moment he started to pull away, she clung harder and started making that sound. Not quite crying, not quite screaming. Something between the two that spoke of pure panic. "I am not leaving the station," Daniel told his daughter. "I am just going to work. I will come back. I always come back." But Lily was beyond reason. She held on like letting go meant death. Daniel looked at Lyra helplessly, and Lyra realized he had been dealing with this every single day. The exhaustion in his face suddenly made perfect sense. Lyra did the only thing she could think of. She started humming. An old song her mother used to sing during storms on their colony world. A melody without words that somehow said everything would be all right even when it would not. Lily stopped mid-scream. Her head turned toward Lyra, eyes wide and confused. The humming continued, soft and steady, filling the cargo bay with something that was not threat or demand or false comfort. "Keep humming," Daniel whispered. He seized the moment to gently extract himself from Lily's grip and step back. The girl reached for him but did not scream again. She stood frozen, torn between running after her father and listening to the strange sound. Daniel left quickly before Lily could decide. The moment the bay doors closed, the girl made her choice. She ran for the door, pounding on it with small fists, calling for her father in a voice that broke Lyra's heart. Lyra kept humming, did not move closer, did not try to comfort or restrain, just sat down on the cushions and let the melody continue while Lily exhausted herself against the unyielding door. It took 20 minutes before the girl slid down to sit on the floor, still crying but quieter now, hiccuping breaths and occasional whimpers. Lyra waited another 10 minutes before she spoke. "My mother sang that song when I was scared," she said softly. "It did not make the scary things go away, but it helped me remember I was not alone." Lily did not respond, did not even look at her, but the crying slowed. "I brought some broken things to fix," Lyra continued. "Old data pads, a scanner, some tools. Would you like to see them?" Silence. Lyra started working anyway, taking apart a data pad and examining its circuits. She spoke while she worked, explaining what each component did, why this connection mattered, how energy flowed through the device. Her voice stayed calm and even, making no demands, expecting nothing. An hour passed, then two. Lily gradually turned away from the door and watched Lyra from across the bay. Her eyes followed the movement of tools, the way pieces came apart and went back together. Curiosity fighting with fear. On the second day, Lily threw things, a tool, a piece of cushion, anything she could reach. She aimed for Lyra's head, but her throws were wild. Lyra did not flinch or scold. She just moved the objects back to where they had been and continued working. The third day, Lily screamed for 2 hours straight. Not crying, not panicking, just screaming to see what would happen. Lyra put in soft earplugs she had made from medical foam and kept fixing a broken scanner. When Lily finally stopped, throat raw and tired, Lyra offered her water without comment. The fourth day changed everything. Lily found a broken data pad in the corner where Lyra had been storing damaged items. She picked it up, looked at it, then threw it at Lyra hard enough that it would have hurt if it connected. Instead, it bounced off a crate and landed near Lyra's feet. Lyra picked it up, examined it carefully, then began taking it apart. Her fingers moved with practiced precision, separating components, checking connections, identifying the problem. She spoke while she worked, not to Lily directly but to herself in that way people do when focused on a task. "Power cell is dead, that is easy to fix, but the screen connection is loose too. Someone dropped this pretty hard, maybe more than once. The frame is cracked here, see? That lets dust in, and dust ruins everything eventually." She glanced up and found Lily had moved closer. Not much, maybe 2 meters instead of 5, but closer. The girl was watching with intense focus, her fear temporarily forgotten in favor of curiosity. "Want to help?" Lyra asked. Lily did not answer, but she did not run either. Lyra took that as permission. She held up a small tool, a connector probe, and set it on the ground between them. This tool checks if power is flowing correctly. You press the tip here on this contact point, and if the light turns green, power is good. Red means broken. She demonstrated, then slid the tool closer to Lily. The girl stared at it for a long moment. Then, moving like she was approaching a dangerous animal, she reached out and picked it up. Her hands were small and clumsy, but she managed to press the probe against the contact point Lyra had indicated. The light glowed red. That means we need to replace this connector, Lyra explained. She showed Lily how to remove the broken part and install a new one. The work required patience and small fingers, both of which Lily had. By the time they finished, the data pad powered on successfully. Lily stared at the working screen like it was magic. Then she looked at Lyra, really looked at her for the first time. Her voice was hoarse from days of screaming and crying, but clear enough. "You are not scary," she said. Lyra smiled behind her hood. "You are not scary either, just hurt. There is a difference." For the rest of that day, they worked on broken items together. Lily's fear was still there. Lyra could see it in how she startled at sudden sounds, how she kept checking the door for her father's return. But between the moments of fear were moments of genuine interest. Questions about how things worked. Careful attempts to help with repairs. Small conversations that were not about trauma or loss but about circuits and power cells and why some materials conducted electricity better than others. When Daniel came to collect Lily that evening, he found his daughter holding Lyra's hand and explaining how they had fixed 3 data pads and a medical scanner. The shock on his face was worth every difficult hour of the previous 4 days. "See you tomorrow, Lily," Lyra said as the girl left with her father. "Tomorrow," Lily agreed, and for the first time since her mother died, she sounded like she might actually look forward to it. 3 weeks became a routine. Daniel dropped Lily off each morning, and the girl barely protested anymore. She had learned that her father always came back, that Lyra would be there waiting, and that the cargo bay was a safe place where nobody expected her to be anything except herself. Lyra found herself looking forward to the mornings. Lily asked endless questions about how things worked, why stars were different colors, what other planets looked like, how ships traveled faster than light. The girl's mind was sharp and hungry for knowledge, and teaching her felt natural in ways Lyra had not expected. She began to reveal more of herself. Let Lily see her scales properly in good light. Let her wings unfold during stretching exercises that kept them from cramping. Lily was fascinated but not afraid. She touched the scales gently and declared them prettier than opals, which made Lyra laugh for the first time in years. But the universe had a way of interrupting peace. Station security started asking questions. Who was accessing Cargo Bay 7 outside normal hours? Who had authorization codes for that section? The questions were routine at first, standard security sweeps, but they made Lyra nervous. Daniel brought the news one evening when picking up Lily. "Social Services wants to verify your situation," he said quietly while Lily gathered her things. "They want to confirm someone is actually caring for her and that the arrangement is legitimate." "I have no legal status here," Lyra said. "I am undocumented. If they investigate me, they will deport me." "I know, but if they do not investigate, they will take Lily, put her in an institutional facility for traumatized children. I have seen those places. They are not cruel, but they are not kind either. She would be one more broken child in a system that does not have time or resources for individual healing." Lyra looked at Lily, who was showing her collection of fixed devices to herself, talking quietly about which ones she liked best. The girl had gained weight in the past weeks, smiled more, still startled at loud sounds and still had nightmares, but she was healing in the way damaged things heal when given time and patience. "What do they need?" Lyra asked. "An inspection. Someone from Social Services will come to verify the care arrangement. They will want to see you, talk to you, assess the environment." "And if I refuse?" "They take Lily tomorrow." That night, Lyra could not sleep. She paced her small hiding space, calculating risks, planning escape routes. 8 years of survival instinct screamed at her to run. Disappear into another station, another system, another life where nobody asked questions. But she kept thinking about Lily's laugh when they successfully repaired a complicated scanner. The way the girl held her hand when explaining things to her father. The trust in her eyes that had been so hard-won and so easily broken. She thought about her own mother who had died protecting her, about her father who had held off mercenaries long enough for her to escape. They had not run when things got dangerous. They had stood their ground for someone they loved. Lyra was not sure she loved Lily, not in the way parents loved children, but she cared, and maybe that was enough. The inspection happened 2 days later in Daniel's quarters, not a government office. Lyra had insisted on choosing the location, checking it thoroughly for hidden cameras, planning 3 different escape routes. Daniel agreed to everything without argument. Inspector Grace Morton arrived with a simple tablet and a tired expression. She was older, maybe 50s by human standards, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much bureaucracy. She noticed Lyra's species immediately, her eyebrows rising slightly, but she made no comment beyond noting it in her report. "I am required to verify several things," Grace said, sitting down at Daniel's small table. "First, that childcare is being provided consistently. Second, that the environment is safe. Third, that the child is not being harmed or neglected. Can you describe a typical day with Lily?" Lyra described their routine. The repair work, the lessons, the questions Lily asked, the progress she was making. Grace typed notes, asked follow-up questions, and watched Lyra carefully. "Why are you doing this?" Grace asked finally. "Most people do not take on difficult childcare situations without strong incentive." "She needed someone who would not quit on her," Lyra said simply. "Everyone else did." Grace turned to Lily, who had been sitting quietly on her father's lap throughout the inspection. "Lily, can you tell me if you feel safe with Lyra?" Lily nodded seriously. "She does not make me pretend I am not scared. She is scared too sometimes. That makes it easier." Something shifted in Grace's expression. She was quiet for a long moment, then closed her tablet. "I am going to approve this arrangement. Officially, Lyra will be listed as a private contractor providing specialized childcare services. Daniel will need to file monthly updates on Lily's progress, and I will conduct quarterly reviews." "That is it?" Daniel asked, surprised. "That is it for me, however." Grace paused, choosing her words carefully. "Director Patel has been asking questions about undocumented residents. He has certain views about non-humans on this station. If he learns about this arrangement, he will make trouble. I cannot protect you from him, only from my department." She stood to leave, then stopped at the door. "I lost a daughter years ago. Illness, nothing anyone could prevent. But I learned that sometimes the best care does not come in traditional forms. Sometimes it comes from someone who understands pain because they have lived it themselves." She looked at Lyra. "Take care of her. She is lucky to have you." After Grace left, Daniel let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for hours. "We made it. Official approval. You can stay." But Lyra felt uneasy. Director Patel was a name she had heard before. He ran security operations and had a reputation for harsh enforcement against anyone he considered undesirable. If he started investigating her, approval from social services would not matter. Over the next week, her fears proved justified. Daniel received an official notice: unauthorized alien residence. They had 48 hours to provide documentation proving Lyra's legal status, or she would be deported. Daniel spent those hours calling every contact he had, trying to find a legal solution. But Lyra had been undocumented for 8 years. There was no quick paperwork that could fix that. The night before the deadline, Lyra prepared to run. Packed her few belongings, planned a route to the docking bays where she could stow away on an outbound freighter. It would mean starting over somewhere new, living in shadows again, but she had done it before. Then Lily found her in the cargo bay, surrounded by her packed supplies. "Are you leaving like Mama did?" the girl asked in a small voice. Lyra froze. The question cut through every survival instinct, every careful plan, every logical reason to disappear. She looked at Lily's face and saw not just fear but betrayal. Another adult abandoning her, another person choosing safety over staying. "I do not want to leave," Lyra said honestly. "But if I stay, they will force me to go, and it might be worse for your father if I fight them." Mama did not want to leave either, but she did, and I was alone in the dark for so long. Lily's voice cracked. "I do not want to be alone again." Lyra knelt down to Lily's level. Her wings unfolded slightly, an unconscious protective gesture. "You will not be alone. Your father is here. Inspector Grace will make sure you are cared for. You will be safe. But you will be gone, like Mama, and I will not know if you are okay or if you are scared or if you are hurt somewhere." Lily grabbed Lyra's hand with both of hers. "You taught me that being brave does not mean not being scared. It means staying even when you are terrified. So stay. Please stay." And Lyra realized the girl was right. She had spent 8 years running from fear, and it had kept her alive, but it had not let her live. Maybe it was time to stop running. Maybe it was time to be as brave as a 4-year-old child who had lost everything but still chose trust over safety. "All right," Lyra said quietly. "I will stay. We will face this together." Lily hugged her, and Lyra wrapped both arms and wings around the small body, making a shelter against the universe that seemed determined to take everything good away. Grace worked through the night trying to create emergency documentation for Lyra, but legal processes took weeks, and they only had hours. The deportation hearing was scheduled for the next day at noon. Director Patel made it clear he intended to make an example of unauthorized residents. Daniel barely slept. He spent the early morning contacting everyone he knew on the station, calling in every favor, reaching out to anyone who might help. Most people were sympathetic but powerless. A few were afraid to get involved. By sunrise, he had nothing concrete to show for his efforts. Lyra spent those same hours writing down everything Lily needed. Her routines, her triggers, the things that helped when she had nightmares, the songs that calmed her, the way she liked her food arranged on the plate. Instructions for whoever would care for the girl after Lyra was gone. It felt like writing a goodbye letter to someone she had only just learned to say hello to. At 8 in the morning, something unexpected happened. Workers from the cargo bay started showing up at Daniel's quarters, not to offer sympathies or platitudes, but with purpose. They brought documentation, records of maintenance work completed by an anonymous contractor, efficiency reports showing how station operations had improved, testimony about equipment failures prevented by mysterious but timely repairs. Robert Kim was the first to speak up. He was a human engineer, older and respected, with scars on his hands from years of dangerous work. 2 years ago, a plasma conduit ruptured in Section C, he said. I was trapped, emergency doors sealed, temperature rising. Someone pulled me out through a maintenance shaft I did not even know existed, carried me to safety and disappeared before I could say thank you. I saw scales, though, pearl-white scales. He looked at Lyra directly. That was you, was it not? Lyra nodded slowly, remembering that day. She had been working nearby when alarms sounded, had acted on instinct despite her fear. You saved my life, never asked for credit, never wanted recognition, just did it because someone needed help. Robert said a formal statement on the table. I will testify to that at your hearing. Others came forward with similar stories. A merchant whose ship Lyra had repaired when no one else would help, allowing him to make a delivery deadline that saved his business. A mother whose child had wandered into dangerous maintenance areas and who Lyra had found and returned safely. A technician who had been struggling with a complex system failure until anonymous instructions appeared in his work queue, solving the problem. Person after person, human and alien alike, each with a story of how Lyra had helped without ever showing her face or asking for anything in return. The station's maintenance efficiency has improved 20% over the past 8 years, said Myra Ockhaffer, a systems analyst. We could never figure out why. Now we know. You have been keeping this place running, fixing problems before they became disasters, and nobody even knew you were here. By 10 in the morning, Daniel had statements from 47 station residents. Each one testified to Lyra's value to the community, to her character, to the quiet good she had done while hiding in shadows. "This might actually work," Grace said, reviewing the documents. "We can argue you have been a beneficial presence, that deporting you harms station operations, that you have established community ties. It is not guaranteed, but it gives us a chance." The hearing room was small and formal, with Director Patel sitting behind a desk flanked by two other administrators. He was a thin man with cold eyes and a reputation for following regulations to the letter, especially when those regulations removed people he considered undesirable. "This is a straightforward case," Patel began. "The individual in question has no legal documentation, no authorized residence, and has been living illegally on this station for years. The law is clear. The law also allows for consideration of extraordinary circumstances," Grace countered. She presented the statements, the maintenance records, the testimony from residents. Patel barely glanced at them. Character witnesses are irrelevant. She broke the law by being here without authorization. That is the only fact that matters. If we deport everyone who provides value to this community just because paperwork was not filed correctly, we will lose more than we gain," Grace argued. "Rules exist for a reason. We cannot make exceptions based on sentiment." Daniel stood up. "Then let me present facts instead. Of sentiment, my daughter has severe trauma. Every authorized caregiver on this station failed to help her. Lyra succeeded. She is improving, learning, healing. If you deport Lyra, you send a message that this station values bureaucracy over the well-being of a 4-year-old child. Your daughter's situation, while unfortunate, does not override immigration law. Actually, it might." One of the other administrators, an older woman named Ann Park, spoke up. "If we can establish that Lyra has been functioning as a station contractor, paying her way through services rendered, then the lack of formal documentation becomes a clerical error rather than criminal activity." Patel frowned. "She has not paid any station fees." "Incorrect." Grace pulled up financial records. "Every dead drop repair job paid a small percentage to station operations through the vendors who hired her. Not much individually, but over 8 years it adds up to legitimate contractor status." "That is a stretch of the definition. So is calling someone a criminal when they have been saving lives and maintaining critical infrastructure." Robert Kim stood from the observation area. "I am on the station's safety committee. I formally request we recognize Lyra's contributions and grant her emergency resident status pending proper documentation." Other people stood as well: the merchant whose business she saved, the mother whose child she found, the technician she helped. One by one, station residents rose to their feet in silent support. Patel looked at the room with clear frustration. "This is highly irregular." "So is having someone keep this station running for 8 years without anyone noticing," Ann Park said. She looked at Lyra, who had been sitting quietly throughout the hearing. "I move to grant temporary resident status, 6 months, renewable, time enough to complete proper immigration procedures." "Seconded," Grace said immediately. Patel was outvoted 2-1. He made his displeasure clear, but the decision stood. Lyra had legal permission to stay, at least for now. As they left the hearing room, people congratulated Daniel and Lyra. Strangers offered support, shared contact information, promised to help with the documentation process. The community that Lyra had helped anonymously for years was finally helping her in return. But outside the building, watching from across the corridor, a scarred man with cold eyes spoke into a communication device. "Found one, pearl white scales, young female, currently on Waypoint 7 station. Yes, I am sure. Same family that we raided 8 years ago on the colony, sending location and identification now." He ended the call and smiled. Dragon scales were worth a fortune, and this one had just made herself visible to the entire station. Hunting her would be easy now. She had given up the only protection she ever had. She had given up hiding. The man disappeared into the crowd before anyone noticed him, already making plans. 3 weeks passed. Life found a new rhythm that felt almost normal. Lyra had proper documentation, a legitimate contractor license, and even a small apartment in the residential section instead of hiding in maintenance tunnels. Lily split her time between her father's quarters and Lyra's place, calling them both home in the easy way children do when they feel safe. The station community had embraced them. People smiled when they saw Lyra and Lily walking together. Shop owners gave them discounts. Other children were starting to approach Lily, curious about her friend with the pretty scales. Slowly, carefully, the girl was learning that the universe could be kind as well as cruel. Lyra worked openly now, taking repair contracts through official channels. She was good at her job and people knew it. Her schedule filled up weeks in advance. Daniel reduced his shift since money was less tight with 2 incomes. He looked less exhausted, smiled more often, talked about maybe taking a vacation someday. It felt too good to last, and Lyra was right. The attack came late at night when Lyra was alone in her apartment. She woke to sounds outside her door. Not the normal sounds of neighbors or maintenance, but careful, purposeful sounds. People trying to be quiet and failing. Her old instincts kicked in immediately. She grabbed her emergency bag, always packed, and moved toward the ventilation shaft that she had made sure connected to her apartment. 8 years of paranoia paying off. But then she heard them trying to override the door locks. Heard them talking about where the dragon girl might run. Heard them mention that they had been watching her patterns for 2 weeks and knew all her usual exits. They had planned this carefully. If she ran, they would catch her in the corridors. If she fought, they would overpower her. 3 armed men against 1 unarmed. Female who weighed maybe 50 kilograms. The math was simple and brutal. Lyra triggered her emergency alert, a simple device that sent signals to both Daniel and Grace. Then she grabbed the heaviest tool she owned, a large wrench, and prepared to fight anyway, because running meant leading them toward the residential areas where Lily and Daniel slept. Running meant putting others in danger. The door burst open. 3 men, 2 human and 1 alien species she did not recognize, all wearing body armor, carrying weapons designed to stun but not kill. They wanted her alive. Scales were worth more when harvested fresh. The lead man smiled, and Lyra recognized him. The scarred face from her nightmares. The mercenary who had killed her mother 8 years ago. "Hello again, little dragon," he said. "You have grown. Those scales will fetch an excellent price." Lyra threw the wrench at his head. He ducked easily, laughing. She tried to run for the ventilation shaft, but one of the others grabbed her wing, pain exploding through the sensitive membrane. She screamed, more in rage than pain, and tried to fight. She managed to scratch one man's face, kick another in the knee, but they were professionals. They had hunted dragons before, knew how to avoid the sharp edges of scales, how to pin wings without breaking them, how to subdue without damaging valuable merchandise. Within minutes, Lyra was on the ground, hands bound, one of them holding a blade against her throat. "Easy money," the scarred man said. "We will harvest the scales here, leave the body in the disposal system, and be off station before anyone notices. Just another random violent." The apartment door, already broken, slammed open again. Daniel stood there, holding a cargo loader's control bar like a weapon. His face was set in an expression Lyra had never seen before, pure protective fury. "Get away from her," he said quietly. The mercenaries looked at him and laughed. "This does not concern you, human. Walk away." "I am not going anywhere." "Then you die too. Makes no difference to us." Daniel did not move. "She saved my daughter. She saved me. She saved half the people on this station without asking for anything in return. You want to hurt her, you go through me first." The scarred man sighed and nodded to one of his crew. "Kill him." But before the mercenary could move, Robert Kim appeared in the doorway, holding a welding torch. "I do not think so." Then Grace arrived, her security override codes already shutting down corridor access. "Station security is 2 minutes out. Leave now and you might escape. Stay and you will spend the next decade in prison." The mercenaries hesitated, calculating odds. That hesitation cost them. More people appeared. Myra Ockafer with a heavy data pad that could do serious damage. The merchant Lyra had helped, holding a cargo hook. The mother whose child she had saved, with a small stunner that was probably illegal but clearly functional. One by one, station residents filled the corridor, armed with whatever they could grab. "You want her, you go through all of us," Daniel repeated. The scarred man looked around at the growing crowd, at the determined faces of people willing to fight for someone they barely knew. He saw something he had not expected. Community. The kind of bond that made people risk themselves for others. "This is not worth it," he muttered to his crew. They released Lyra and backed toward the emergency stairs. Station security arrived as they fled, pursuing them through the corridors. Lyra lay on the floor, shaking, her wings still bleeding from where they had grabbed it. Daniel knelt beside her, carefully avoiding her injured wing, and helped her sit up. "Are you okay?" "They were going to kill me, take my scales. They knew where I lived, knew my patterns, planned everything." "But they did not account for you having people who care about you," Robert said. "That was their mistake." Grace coordinated with security while other residents checked on Lyra's injuries. Someone brought medical supplies. Someone else brought water. Lily appeared, having been woken by the commotion, and pushed through the adults to reach Lyra. "You are hurt," the girl said, tears in her eyes. "I will be okay," Lyra promised. "Your father saved me, a lot of people saved me." "Because you are family," Lily said simply, "and family stays." Station security caught 2 of the 3 mercenaries within the hour. The scarred man escaped on a cargo ship, but his image was now flagged across multiple systems. He would be arrested eventually. In the medical bay 2 days later, Lyra's wing was healing well. The doctors said it would scar but retain full function. Daniel and Lily visited every few hours, bringing food and stories and updates. Grace stopped by with official news. The station council voted unanimously to grant you permanent resident status. They also created a formal position for you in maintenance operations. Full benefits, housing, the works. "Why?" Lyra asked. "I am just one person." "You are the person who held this community together for 8 years without anyone knowing. You are the person who taught a traumatized child to trust again. You are the person who saved lives and asked for nothing." Grace smiled. "You are exactly the kind of person we want here." 6 months later, Lyra stood at the observation deck with Daniel and Lily, watching ships arrive and depart. Lily was enrolled in school now, making friends, still had hard days but more good ones. Daniel had been promoted to supervisor in his department, and Lyra had trained 5 other technicians in advanced repair techniques, creating jobs and strengthening the station's infrastructure. A small dragon arrived on a refugee ship, just 14 years old, terrified and alone. Lyra and Lily met them at the docking bay. "I know you are afraid," Lyra said gently. "I was too, but I learned something important here." Lily took the young dragon's hand. "Family is not who you are born to, it is who stays when you are scared." The young dragon looked at them with hopeful eyes, and Lyra saw herself 8 years ago. Broken and hiding, convinced the universe was full of nothing but hunters and pain. She had been wrong. The universe was full of both cruelty and kindness, and you could not have one without the possibility of the other. "Come on," Lyra said. "Let me show you your new home." She led them into the station, into a community that had taught her the most important lesson. That being brave did not mean never being afraid. It meant choosing connection over isolation, trust over survival, love over safety. It meant letting yourself be seen, knowing you might get hurt, but believing that the possibility of belonging was worth the risk. Her mother's final words echoed in her memory. "Survive, but do not forget to live." For the first time in 8 years, Lyra was doing both.